Welcome to Michael's Record Collection. On this episode, I'm happy to have with me Billy Livesay of the Livesays. You have a new album out called Not What I Bargained For, just come out, I believe, September 1st. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Uh, so I want to talk a little bit about this album, and you actually have come out with two albums since the pandemic started. The Rhythm of Love and Dysfunction last year, and now this year, Not What I Bargained For. And my question, I guess, my first question is these two albums, do you see them as companions, or do you think these are quite different, and were they intentionally different?
Um, well, I would think the answer is sort of both. I mean, they're different, but they are brother and sister albums because some of the songs that are on this album were originally supposed to be on the Rhythm of Love and Dysfunction. And that all happened because of the passing of our drummer. And so, I mean, we had the album completed, and then when he passed, and we sort of had a hiatus looking for a new drummer, and meanwhile, I'm still writing. And then obviously, the pandemic hit, and so it just kind of snowballed from there. But yeah, I would say that they're brother and sister, most definitely.
Okay.
Or drummer Eddie Zine, who passed, he plays on 3 tracks on this album.
Okay. Yeah, Eddie passed in 2018, I believe it was.
For the year, yeah.
And he was replaced by Howard Goldberg, and also in the band Jorge La Plume. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, on bass and vocals.
George La Plume.
La Plume. Okay, Victor Barrios on organ, and Tim Murphy on piano. When I listen to your music, it reminds me of kind of a scaled down E Street Band sort of vibe. It's almost like just like a smaller version of the E Street Band. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I got a lot of my influence comes from the fact that, I played with Clarence Clemons for 12 years. Mm-hmm. And, I was just, I saw so many Springsteen shows and was just totally, seeing the behind, learning things behind the scenes and whatnot, even with the instrumentation of the band. I mean, that was the same, Clarence patterned his band after the E Street Band. And then, I always thought about it, it would be really nice rather than have one keyboard player, because Cookie was in the band first, have one keyboard player, playing between organ and piano, to have both things going simultaneously. So yeah, I definitely, the fact that you picked up on that, I guess, it's just an influence,
Mm-hmm. Your music has been, a lot of artists hate labels, but it's been called Americana. I think that's kind of an apt description. You don't see a lot of Americana artists coming out of the Miami area.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Miami is really South Florida is a major, is a melting pot with all kinds of influences. But because I'm older and my influences are much more dated, so to speak, between, blues and rock and the Beatles and the Stones and all the stuff that came out of the 60s and so forth. I think that's the reason for that. But I still pick up the influences, the Latin influences being mm-hmm. South Florida, we have some stuff that hasn't been on any records yet, but there might be, that are a bit more funkier and a bit more rhythmical. I would think that since Howard's been in the band, it's sort of leaned a little bit more syncopated with musically. Color of the music is a little bit more syncopated.
Got it. The standout track to me, obviously, is, Not What I Bargained For, is Both Sides. It's the album opener, and it's something that I think is extremely of its time right now. it starts off with the line, "I didn't know what I was getting into when I posted that picture on my Instagram." And it's really about the misinformation and the needless and senseless arguing that takes place on social media. And I wondered if that song sprung from a particular incident in your life.
No, well, what happened was about 6 years ago, I had a friend of mine that had comment. I saw her comment on social media where she said, all of, I didn't respond, but I just saw what she had written, and she had mentioned that, you've got both sides and all this ridiculous information, and right away it hit me, two sides in the ridiculous. So I kind of I wrote the beginning, I didn't know it, but it was on acoustic guitar, and because I write everything on acoustic guitar, but it was more in a sort of like can I play it for you?
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So it was sort of like let me get rid of this. It was sort of like that. Oh, I didn't know what I was getting into when I posted. It was sort of like that, like a more of a John Prine, because I was listening to John Prine at the time too. So I was kind of looking at it as a singer-songwriter kind of, and I didn't know what I was getting into when I posted that picture on my Instagram. All the crazies came out swinging. What the hell was I thinking when I posted that? And that's all I had is it's true. It's true. There's a conspiracy. I know because I read it in the news feed, ideas about religion and politics, two sides, and along with the ridiculous. Because at the time, I think she was commenting on something that was religious and political. So it kind of sat for like 6 years, and I would pick it up and kind of play around with it. And originally I was thinking of it as a joke song. And then I had then last year when I picked it up and started playing around with it again, I posted just a little clip of that first verse after I got put it in the same chordal arrangement that it has now. I posted a little clip, and somebody said, "Oh, it sounds like the Who." And I'm thinking, how does he get the Who out of this? So as a sort of like as a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, I told my bass player, who is a major Who fan, George LaPlume, I said, let's put drums to this and let's make it like the Who. So the beginning is like the Who, it's influence came from Won't Get Fooled Again. So it's so that anyway, that's how that song came about. It was just something that I had, like I said, written about 6 years ago from a friend of mine's comment on social media, and I just took it from there.
That's an insane coincidence, I think, because I believe today is the anniversary of Keith Moon's death. But that's an interesting story. I find that, and it's interesting too that you started writing that song a couple of years back, because last year, especially with not just the pandemic, but with Black Lives Matter and with the election, there was so much of this going on.
Right. Well, that made me complete the song, because obviously once I realized that this song had some sort of relevance, and that's why I picked it up, took it out of the archives and started working on it some more, especially where with Black Lives Matter and, with global warming and so on and so forth. And I know so many friends that now aren't so much friends anymore, and there's all these family arguments over, politics and religion and global warming and just this crazy stuff. And so that in itself led me to write, to work on a song that I had written a long time ago, Crazy Isn't It? The same sort of thing. It was a song that I had a piece of a long time ago. And because of all the instances of just everybody just jibber jabbering and talking about crazy nonsense, brought that song back to life.
Why do you think people are acting like this? It's not brand new, but it seems like the events of the last 2 years have have magnified this sort of phenomenon where people are having to mute or unfriend family members. Friends are falling out over things like this that, in a lot of cases, there are easily verifiable facts, and yet one party or the other refuses to see them.
Yeah. I think these are ingrained sort of opinions that, that we all have, over the years, growing up, but and people, I think what's happened is people that are in positions of power have said some things that maybe other people sort of agree with until they find out for themselves that this is not true. And sometimes people, I think, don't want to admit that something is not true. I mean, I know I have that. We all have that little characteristic of somebody will say something and that's not right, and no one likes to admit that they're wrong about it.
It's ego.
Yeah. Absolutely. Your ego gets in the way, and I think about that a lot, but I try to leave myself open and really try to get my facts straight before I really, say, that's wrong. It's like, so I just saw something a little while ago, somebody talking about history and racism and taking down monuments and things like that. And I'm thinking, these people say these things, but at the same time, how would they feel if in Nazi Germany, they were saying the same thing? Oh, this is history. So we can have these statues of Hitler and we can have these statues of these people. To me, it's a similar, situation, circumstance.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I've heard some songs that have covered this topic, but I don't think I've heard a song that covers it as completely as both sides, and at the same time is a catchy song. So I think you guys knocked that one out of the park.
Well, thank you.
This album also contains some interesting covers. The Springsteen cover, "If I Should Fall Behind," makes sense given your background. You're having played with Clarence Clemons, having had that familiarity with Bruce. And then there's another one called "Hold Me," which it first charted back in 1933. It was written by Jack Little, Dave Oppenheim, and Ira Schuster. "Hold Me" has been recorded by several artists, and I was curious, how did this particular song find its way to your ears, and which version was the one that really kind of spoke to you?
Well, when I was a kid listening to music in the 60s, PJ Proby had this song. And I never really realized how bad PJ Proby's version was until I went back and looked at the video doing it, because when we first worked it up, I was playing it. George and I were in a band together years and years ago when we were kids, and so that was a song that we kind of just we worked up without really hearing it. We just kind of we liked it, just the 60s kind of energy of it. And then Charlie Sexton did a version of it. Okay, Charlie Sexton from Texas. And that was on the radio back in the I think in the mid 80s. And then we heard it then and said, wow, this is a good cover of this old PJ Proby song, and much better. So we sort of adapted from the Charlie Sexton version, and we had been playing it live for such a long time that we said, we ought to record the song, because we really liked it and we liked playing it. And then we put the harmonies in it and the piano and the organ. So, it kind of developed over a period of times. So it had a certain energy. I think Maggie Bell from England also did a version of it.
Yeah. I was looking into some of them, watching some YouTube videos on them earlier actually about that. And PJ Proby was the one that I wrote down as like, is this the one that you had first heard? approach to covers is interesting because you had a couple of covers on the rhythm of Love and Dysfunction, Woodstock and The Heart of the Matter. And Woodstock, you put your own spin on that one, but Heart of the Matter is more of a straight cover. So how do you kind of decide when you start doing a song or playing around with a song that already exists, whether or not you're going to give it a whole new slant or whether you're going to do it sort of remain true to the original?
You know, it's just something that just comes about. What happened with Heart of the Matter, when Eddie passed, and we were in sort of on a hiatus situation, I got asked to fill in an Eagles tribute band. And Heart of the Matter, one of the songs that we were playing in this Eagles tribute band. And so the guys in my band said, you know, you do that really well, and it's a great song. You know, let's adapt it and work it up. So we did that. I mean, we worked it up and then recorded it. You know, it's a little heavier than the Henley version, but it's just it's one of those songs I really didn't want to mess with the melody, you know, and just the way the song is presented. The guitars are a little heavier. It's a tad faster, but overall, it's real similar to Henley's version. Woodstock basically is a song that has been a lot of different, not a lot, but I mean a few different configurations between Joni Mitchell and, you know, Crosby, Stills and Nash. So that I figured that was something that we could play with, and actually I was playing acoustically a little bit, and so I worked it up by myself, playing it acoustically and making it real simple. And it's sort of just the guys in the band say, hey, you do a really cool version of that. Let's do that. And so that's how that happened.
Okay. These two albums both have a lot of tracks on them. You know, typically you have about 10 songs on an album. You went a little over that. And that begs the question, how many songs do you write for an album, and then how do you pare it down to get the ones that you want to put on the record?
Yeah. Well, the fact that, you know, I'm independent, I'm not really getting outside help from a record company or a producer, because I mean, we produce everything ourselves. So in that context, if you have a producer or a record label, they're going to choose the songs that are basically going to go on your record. I mean, nowadays, you know, artists have input, but still, when it comes time to pay for it, you know, the producer and the record label are basically saying how many songs you got on it. So these songs were all taken, probably chosen. Rhythm of Love and Dysfunction, I had about 20 songs to choose from. And then the same thing with this record, I had about 20 songs to choose from. And some of those songs were left over from the Rhythm of Love and Dysfunction that were already recorded and ready to go. So, you know, I figured, you know, these would be, and because I like them all, I'd put all 20 songs on the record, you know. So because I like them all, and everybody else in the band, you know, they're saying, what about this song? What about this song? So, but this song has 12, so that's not too bad.
Yeah. It's what I like about the way that the album is spread out is that, you know, a lot of times artists will front load all the good songs, or all the best songs anyway, might be the first 4 or 5 songs. But some of my favorites on this album, in addition to Both Sides and the nominal title track, what I bargained for, Better Angels and Can't Stop the Talkin', are later in the, you know, like toward the end of the album, and plus the 2 covers. I think those are the ones that stand out for me.
Right. Well, I'm glad you say that, because I agree. Yeah, most artists will put their best songs in the front load of the album with their best songs. And for me, I guess it come again because we're doing it, and we're not really sure of what our best songs are, because I'm so close to the writing, and I like everything that I do. You know, these are like my babies. So, but I wanted to arrange the record in such a way also that I didn't want to end it with something that was too negative. So in other words, you know, Better Angels was down at the end of the the list of songs that came on, as well as, in troubled times. But I wanted to end it on something that was a little bit more upbeat as far as the content and the feel of the song. So that's why Can't Stop the Talking and Crazy Isn't It? Actually, I wanted them to be almost like one song. It didn't really turn out that way when in the mastering happened. I wanted them to be a little bit closer together. I had been listening a lot to, over the last couple of years, to Springsteen's Western Stars.
Okay.
And so I really liked the way he's got he's got two songs. One is Sundown, and offhand, the other one, the title escapes me. Anyway, the two songs are linked together as like, one coming out of the other song. And that's how I wanted these last two songs to be. It's something that sort of ended on a more positive note. And Crazy Isn't It?
When you produce an album yourself, is there a concern that you don't have pushback from anyone? Is there somebody that's the voice of maybe we should try this a different way?
Yeah, the guys in the band, they all push back.
Yeah.
So that's, that's a good thing. I mean, I look for that. But it's like with any band. I mean, I like to look at the Livesays as, yes, we are a band because everybody has input, the pushback. But at the end of the day, because it's me writing the songs, I have the final say. But they'll override me sometimes and get me to change my mind if I think it's, applicable. So,
were there any instances of that with these songs on this album?
Not too much from what I can remember. I mean, I'll write the songs and demo the songs for the guys in the band, and then they'll bring all their parts and record over top of the recordings that are there. And we'll talk about, as far as the, what we wanted. Like, for instance, like in the beginning of Crazy Isn't It is this musical interlude segue coming out of Can't Stop the Talking, and the end of Can't Stop the Talking, which kind of goes into a musical place with no vocals, and it just kind of changes. There was some pushback a little bit there by wanting to put drums and put some stuff, and I said, no, we got to leave it kind of sparse. The idea of it is to have this musical listening experience, and we hadn't really done any of that on any of the other records, and I thought it would be a little bit different to do on this record.
Did everybody record their parts in their home studios? How did that work?
No, they've all done it here at my house. I have here in my house, I have a studio, and we all recorded. We all live in the neighborhood, so it's easy.
Okay. Yeah, it's based on the timing. I wasn't sure, how you handled that with the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything.
Right. Well, everybody's we've all been vaxxed, and everybody's real good about, being careful. We all wear masks when we go out in the public, and we haven't played. So, I mean, we just started playing in June, again, after the pandemic started. So, I mean, we played once in September for the Rhythm of Love and Dysfunction, and that was a total nightmare. And our organ player got COVID, and so we didn't play. He came through it fine. He wasn't hospitalized or anything, but it was just it's just a crazy time. So, and we didn't play from then all the way until this last June. Because then we played outside at this event in Fort Lauderdale. But at the time, it seems okay. Everybody's getting vaccinated. It seems like things are winding down. Then all of a sudden now everything's, especially in Florida, has gotten crazy again. I mean, I just read today's paper that Florida's 11th in the country in COVID infections, but number 1 in deaths. Yeah. So, but the COVID rate is coming down, but it's still a slow process.
Yeah, I'm actually in Orange County up in Orlando, and I believe we're only something like 55% vaccinated here, something like that. It's
Oh, I was going
again,
to say where you're broadcasting from, and you're in Orlando.
yeah, yeah. So, unfortunately, it just takes us back to both sides, and what's going on with the mask protests and the anti-vaxxers it just feeds right back into that song. It makes it even more meaningful today. Do you have a favorite song on this record?
Um, I think my favorites, my two favorites really are the last two.
Okay.
Only because they're different from what we normally do. I like In a Small Town a lot. I like them. I like them all, but there's just something about the last two that kind of they move me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm always curious about that because I know it's like choosing between your children, but some people have favorite children.
Well, I as far as playing, I like playing Drunkard's Lament a lot. And because we've been rehearsing for this CD release party that we're going to be doing next Friday, and that'll be at this venue in Boca Raton called the Funky Biscuit. Okay. So we'll be playing the album there, along with songs from the other 4 records, and we do original versions of these classic covers, mostly some old soul songs and things that we do. It's all in the same genre.
Mm-hmm. What do you have planned as far as live? Is there going to be a tour for this album? Is it going to be just local stuff, festivals?
Yeah, right now it's just going to be local, mainly because of the COVID thing. We're trying to play as many outdoor venues as we can. The venue that we're playing in Boca is inside, but it's a large venue. It's got a stage. We don't really have to mingle. We can hide in the dressing room, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, most of the people that are going to probably come see us that we know are older. So I know probably most of them have been vaccinated, and they're probably a little bit safer, but still you have that element where, everybody wants to take a picture with you, and you gotta, so it starts getting a little sketchy.
Yeah. What is it like for a performer that's been around like you have for a bit, and, now you're going to shows and you look out in the crowd and what you see staring back at you is a lot of cell phones?
Yeah. No, that's what I tell my bass player, and I go cell phone, because people, they record the band, live, and they're starting posting this stuff, and I'm looking at these videos, I'm thinking, boy, we're god awful. I wish they would take it down. And it's like, oh no. But most everything is pretty consistent. But yeah, it's true. I mean, you're so afraid of, somebody's gonna, we're gonna have a train wreck, and then that train wreck is gonna be all over, social media. So yeah, I guess it's just it's all part of what we do, so there's no way we can get away from it.
And I imagine it has to affect the artist audience feedback that you're getting from the crowd, because they're worried about getting the shot and framing everything, and they're not just enjoying the music, a lot of them.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, or sometimes in that regard, they've all got their cell phones up, shooting videos of us because they like what they're seeing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's but you've seen that kind of evolution as you've gone on in your career. I want to talk a little bit about Clarence. Rock in peace, Clarence Clemons. You spent more than a decade in his band. You're on his Live in Asbury Park releases. How did you get into Clarence's radar? How did you guys meet, and how did you come to be in his band?
Okay, well, Bruce broke up the E Street Band in the 90s. Clarence moved to Riviera Beach, which is just a little bit north of Palm Beach. And he was looking to put just a sort of local thing together where he could play once or twice a week. They wanted to get a club where he could do like a jam session night where he would have his band, and then he would come and he would play a couple of songs, and then people would come from all over and jam. And the club owners, they were receptive to this idea because you know, they on a Monday or a Tuesday night or something like that. So it was just a coincidence that this club that I used to play at down here in South Florida called the Button South, I knew the manager. Her name is Darlene Delano, and she became Clarence's manager. How she became Clarence's manager, I'm not real sure of that story. Mm-hmm. But through her, I found out that Clarence was looking to audition musicians. He already had a couple of guys, and he was looking for a band. And she said, would you want to audition with your band? And I said, sure, absolutely. And so there was a club in Hollywood that is normally closed on a Monday or a Tuesday night. So it was a Tuesday night, January 11th, 1998. And the reason why I remember the date so well is because it was his birthday. And it's also my wife's birthday. Oh. So the club was closed, so they opened the club specifically so that we could do this audition. So we set up and played, and the club was totally empty except for Clarence, his manager, and his best friend, a guy by the name of Bruce Schwack. And they sat in the middle of the room, and it was very nerve-wracking because we had to play our set as though the room was full, and there's just Clarence Clemons, and I'm thinking the whole time, gee, that's Clarence Clemons, I didn't know Clarence at all. So we did our set. They also gave us 4 or 5 songs to learn so Clarence could come up and play with us. And so we learned the songs, and he came up and played, and then afterward we did our hellos and goodbyes and whatnots, and then they called me the next day and said, Darlene called me and said, Clarence really liked what you did. He wants you to be part of the band. And I said, well, what about the other guys? And he said, no, he just wants you. And I said, okay. So it was great for me because that enabled me to keep my band actually going, because with the money that I made from working with Clarence, I could keep the Livesays going.
Mm-hmm. You were, I believe, and I don't have these albums, sadly, yet, because shelf space and money, but the Live in Asbury Park albums, Bruce does make an appearance on one of these.
Yes, well, actually, he when we finish, what I'll do is I'll send you the songs in a WeTransfer file.
Sounds good to me.
So we were playing at the Stone Pony. We did 4 shows. We did a daytime show and we did a nighttime show, both on Saturday and Sunday. And so the making of those records. So what they did is they compiled, the best that we did from the 4 shows to make the 2 albums, Live in Asbury Park 1 and then Live in Asbury Park 2. So the first night, Bruce showed up. We played a couple of songs. We had no idea what we were going to be playing. But when you listen, it's crazy because when you listen to the songs, you would think that we had been rehearsing the songs for a while. Everybody knew the parts, but they're old soul songs. One is the one that's on the album is Raise Your Hands. So it was something that the E Street Band had done for a long period of time. So Clarence knew the song, and it was a song by Eddie Floyd. So that was really a great experience. It was really kind of cool. Actually, mm-hmm. Bruce came and had sat in with us a few times over the years. The next night, John Bon Jovi, Tico Torres, those people were there. they were going to come sit in with us. There was a bomb scare. So this is at the Stone Pony. So at the Stone Pony, if you're familiar, they do concerts in the parking lot. So they get about 500,000 people in the parking lot. So when they had the bomb scare, Bon Jovi, Tico Torres, all the rock stars, they booked. They, and they totally cleared the whole parking lot, the venue. All these people were in the streets, did a search for the bombs with dogs, and then they left, and then they brought everybody back in, and we finished the show. So,
what was it like for you being a bit of a hired gun for Clarence?
Clarence was a great guy. I mean, he was the kind of guy. I mean, the only problem with playing with Clarence was that because he was on such a different level. I mean, I could call him up on the phone and say, "Hey, how you doing?" I went fishing with him one time, first time I ever caught a sailfish, but I couldn't really like call him up and say, "Hey, I'm coming over to pick you up and take you out to dinner," because I'd have to rent a limo. I'd have to go to his house and pick him up, and I'd have to take him someplace that was a 5-star restaurant I just couldn't afford. But other than that, I had stayed at his house a couple of times. Like I said, I had gone fishing with him. He was a great guy. If we could be on a tour bus, after a show, and there could be some kid that would say, "Hey, can I get Clarence's autograph?" And I'd look around and see how many people were hassling him, and if there wasn't a lot of people around him, I'd bring the kid into the bus and say, "Clarence, this is so and so. He wants you," and he was real good about it. He'd sign whatever they needed to have signed, and he was.
Sounds like a good guy who's he got used to the good life there with the E Street Band.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about you, Billy. What we mentioned this song that came along in 1933 that you heard in the mid '60s, early in the mid '60s, "Hold Me." What was the first song that you remember really kind of connecting with when you were young?
The first song I connected with, probably Elvis Presley.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was a little kid, Elvis was the guy. You'd stand in front of the mirror, with a fake guitar and pretend you were Elvis Presley, and then once I finally got a guitar for real, I was in junior high school, and that was after the Beatles and the Stones. So there's no really one song that I can think of in my life that I really connect with. I mean, one of my favorite songs of all time is probably "Maybe I'm Amazed" by Paul McCartney.
Okay.
But other than that, it's like just music in general, I kind of connected with, but I wouldn't say any one song in particular.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite record or something that you always go back to?
I go back to listen to Beatles stuff, but now I've really tried to expand my horizons a little bit. I'm listening to more, I don't want to say, I guess so, I'm listening to more country music, the Keith Urban stuff. I don't really like the traditional country music, the Tammy Wynette, Loretta Lynn type of country. Although there are some songs, I think I'm more of a song person than an artist person, because I'll gravitate to a song regardless of the artist. And the same thing with hip hop. I mean, or R&B or soul or whatever. I mean, I really like the song by Eminem, "Stan," just because I can relate to it and just has that story. I think I'm more drawn to songs than anything else.
Who who influences your playing? Who were your big playing influences as a guitarist, and do you have those same influences as a vocalist, or do you have different vocal influences?
Yeah. As a guitar player, um, I don't gravitate too much to the Steve Vais and the Joe Satrianis. Too many notes for me, but that's probably because I can't play that. Now, I grew up with the classics, the Eric Claptons and the Jimmy Pages, and probably Carlos Santana really had a big influence on me as far as the style that I play and the way I play. Guitar player that was here when I was a kid, Mike Panera, had a big influence on me. George Harrison, because I like the bit parts that he played in the songs. But I think the classic guitar players really are the ones that set me on my path. As far as vocally, I was probably influenced the most vocally by a singer that I actually played in a band with when I was a kid. His name was Steve Park. Only because he was the singer in the band that I was in, and I really didn't. I wasn't a lead singer. I was just singing background harmony. So I really didn't become a lead singer until I was forced into that position. Somebody had to do it, so I'm the one that did it.
Do you enjoy it, or would that be something that you would be interested in finding a front man to be with the Livesays?
No, I'm the guy.
Yeah. You've grown into the role now. It's a comfortable old shoe for you now.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't mind having another guitar player, only because it would free me up to do other things. There's a lot of parts on the record that I wish that I could play live because I can't, because I'm singing. Now, Joe Bonamassa does a really good job of singing and playing guitar. I should mention him again as far as a guitar player influencing me, because I really like the way he plays a lot, mainly because he's old school, but he still shreds. And so, I was always taught that the guitar playing is supposed to be an extension of the vocal. So that's where I'm coming from there.
Okay. Somebody takes gets the CD, they bring it home, put it on, they listen to Not What I Bargained For from start to finish. What do you want them to take away from that experience, the listener?
I want them to just, hopefully they'll just feel something from the music. I mean, that's because that's how it is for me. I mean, I could be listening to a record. It's like, for instance, like with Springsteen's Western Stars. When I started listening to that record, it's like it seemed it was painted with different colors if it was a painting, and the songs and the melodies kind of like just gave me a feeling. I can't really describe what that feeling is. I wish I could be a little bit more precise about how I feel, but I just hope that when whoever listens to what we're playing, whether it's our live show or whether it's on record, that they get a feeling from the songs that they hear. Because to me, it's all about the songs. The guitar solos, the piano solos, the organ solos. We strive to have them say something, so that there's a certain melody. Even if you listen to classical music, I mean, sometimes with classical music, I mean, you hear, da 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 dun dun. There's a certain feeling that you get when you hear that every time, or even the William Tell Overture, the Lone Ranger. You get this feeling when you hear that music. Yeah,
there's a connection made. There's whether it's a positive emotion or so-called negative emotion, there's some kind of a correlation between your brain and what's going on with the music. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Where's the best place for people to get Not What I Bargained For, where you guys get the most reward for the sale?
That would probably be at our website,
Hmm.
the levasaysmusic.com. Also BillyLivesay.com, but the levasaysmusic.com is where people can get the record. You can get it in iTunes and everywhere else. It's on all the platforms.
Okay. And for those that are not familiar, the spelling of Livesay is actually Livesay. So
Exactly.
yeah, the levasaysmusic.com.
I think that's great because you pronounce the name right, and most people go, oh, the Livesays or the Livesays, and I say it doesn't matter, however you want to say it, fine with me.
I didn't actually know because I had just read it. I had just seen it online, and I hadn't actually heard it said. But there was a pronunciation guide, I want to say in the press release maybe for this album, and that's the only reason that I knew. But I always ask in advance how somebody wants their name pronounced or how the correct pronunciation is. And in this case, I forgot to do it, so it's a good thing I learned it.
Oh yeah, no, it was perfect.
All right, Billy Livesay, this is a really strong album. Not What I Bargained For came out in beginning of September. I hope it does well for you because I really have enjoyed it, and I think that most people that gravitate toward just good old American rock and roll, Americana, whatever you want to call it, I think will like this. I think that the Springsteen fans will love it, especially the cover of If I Should Fall Behind. I think you guys did a great job on the cover. I thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I again, good luck with the album. Good luck with the live shows and everything that follows.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.